The first thing Ezra noticed was the silence. It wasn't the comfortable, sleepy silence of a lazy Earth morning or the white noise hum of a spaceport on lunch break. This silence was the kind you could trip over. It made the walls of the observation wing feel like they were holding their breath, waiting for something ancient and divine to either blink or smite you, or both. Ezra Vale adjusted the collar of his stiff-issue observer uniform for the 12th time that hour. He hated the fabric. It clung in all the wrong places and somehow still managed to feel like it was trying to file a complaint about him. "This is Ezra Vale," he muttered to the blank console. "Day 6 of silent service aboard the glorious palace of Her Ever-Radiant Majesty, Queen Erie of the Eighth Spire, Sovereign of Caerthwen, Keeper of the Twin Suns, Listener of the Waters, and holder of that one look that could get you disintegrated." He paused. "Still haven't spoken to the Queen. Still not vaporized. Win-win." The translator node on the console blinked red, then green, then chirped politely, probably wondering if this was an official report or just another of Ezra's audio journals that no one would ever listen to unless something exploded and they had to piece together who caused it. Spoiler, probably him. The palace was a marvel of alien engineering. Rooms shifted shape based on emotional resonance. Hallways rearranged themselves when they got bored, and the lighting system had moods. Ezra once walked into the library wing and was nearly blinded because the chandeliers were feeling performative. He didn't even know how lighting could feel, but here he was, on a world that defied logic and ran on vibes. The only constant in this royal kaleidoscope of weird was the protocol. Protocol with a capital, underlined P protocol said, "Do not speak to the Queen. Do not look directly at the Queen. Do not approach, acknowledge, or even think too loudly about the Queen. She is not to be engaged. She is not your friend, your curiosity, or your late-night crush." Ezra, unfortunately, had already broken the last one in his head. He tried not to think about her, he really did. But Uri made it difficult. She had a way of entering a room like a song you hadn't heard before, but immediately needed to hear again. Her skin shimmered faintly with iridescent tones that shifted like oil on water, and her ears, long, delicate, elegant curves that swept upward like they were listening to frequencies Ezra would never be evolved enough to understand, flicked at the subtlest sounds. He once saw her pause during a state procession to glance at a child whose footstep had been slightly off rhythm. Not annoyed, just curious. A flick of an ear, a slight tilt of the head, and the moment was over. But Ezra remembered it with the kind of clarity usually reserved for near-death experiences or perfect punchlines. He sighed and leaned back against his cot, which had the softness of intergalactic tax code. His quarters were functional, minimal, sterile, like a dentist's waiting room, if that dentist also designed spaceship interiors. The single wall screen rotated calming images of Caerthwen's landscapes, which Ezra found more unsettling than soothing. No planet should be that clean. It reeked of obsessive gardening and drone-optimized rock placement. A chime sounded at the door. Not the imperial triple tone, which meant summon, nor the security knock, which meant brace for awkward questions. This one was soft, hesitant. Ezra sat up. He wasn't expecting anyone. No one came to visit, mostly because he was on the bottom rung of a diplomatic ladder so tall, it needed its own atmosphere. The door slid open. At first, he thought it was a glitch. Maybe the palace decided to prank him. He wouldn't put it past the hallway AIs. But then he saw her, Queen Erie, barefoot, standing in his doorway. He froze. Brain, mouth, body, everything went into safe mode. He didn't even blink. She was wearing a simple robe, the color of starlight on black water, and her long ears were relaxed, angled slightly backward in a way he'd never seen in the palace's official recordings. She said nothing. He tried not to breathe too loudly. Then, without a word, she stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a whisper. Okay, Ezra thought. This is fine. Perfectly normal. The sovereign monarch of an alien empire is in my bedroom. Happens all the time. No biggie. Maybe she's lost. Maybe the palace reshuffled the architecture again. Maybe I'm dreaming. Yeah, dreaming. Definitely dreaming. A dream that smells suspiciously like lavender and plasma. She looked around the room like someone cataloging a museum exhibit. Her gaze landed on the corner where Ezra had stacked his laundry cube, currently pulsing an embarrassed shade of orange, and he swore she almost smiled. He cleared his throat, the sound pitiful in the enormous silence. "Can I help you?" he asked very slowly, very carefully, like each word was being submitted for royal approval before spoken. She turned her head, one ear twitching faintly. Her eyes locked onto his, deep, still, not cold but heavy with something he couldn't name. Then she sat, right there, on the edge of his cot, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ezra stared. She stared back. Neither spoke. He opened his mouth, closed it again, opened it once more like a goldfish trying to recite Shakespeare, then gave up and ran a hand through his hair. "This is wildly against protocol," he whispered. Her expression didn't change. "Like catastrophic level rule breaking," he added. "Nothing. I think I'm supposed to faint now," he said, "or recite the oath of non-engagement. But full disclosure, I never memorized it. There was a lot of paperwork, and I got distracted by the emergency snack pack." Still, silence. He reached for his water canister. It was empty. Of course it was, because why wouldn't it be when the alien queen decided to drop in for a midnight existential crisis? Finally she stood. Ezra straightened so fast he nearly fell off the bed. She walked to the door, paused, and glanced back at him. Then she left. The door hissed shut behind her. Ezra sat in stunned silence for a full minute, then turned to the blank console and activated the audio journal. "Okay," he said, "so that just happened. Day 6, update. The Queen visited. No conversation, no bloodshed, no intergalactic scandal. She just hung out. I have questions. Mostly starting with, what the hell, and ending with, am I going to be arrested by morning?" The console blinked red. He groaned. "Great. Even the AI's judging me." He lay back down and stared at the ceiling, where the calming projection now showed stars swirling gently above. "Just for the record," he added, "if I disappear tomorrow, tell Earth I died doing something completely stupid." Pause. "Also, delete my browser history." Ezra stared at his door for 20 minutes after she left. Not because he expected her to return, though a small, deeply unprofessional part of him hoped she would, but because he was still half convinced the palace had launched a social experiment to see how long it took a human to go mad when visited by royalty in their pajamas. "Day 7, he muttered to his console, running a hand over his face. "Still alive, no guards, no official warnings. Either no one knows what happened last night, or I've entered the too pathetic to punish tier of diplomatic violations." The console beeped as if to say or both. Ezra paced. The walls of his quarters, normally a cool metallic gray, shifted slightly in hue, reacting to his unease. It was some kind of alien emotional echo tech, supposedly designed to enhance wellness. Right now, it looked like the inside of an indecisive chameleon. He paused by the window, watching Kurthwin's twin moons slowly orbit each other above the palace skyline. Somewhere beneath their silver light, Queen Uri was presumably ruling a civilization, engaging in high-level diplomacy, or possibly reorganizing her sock drawer, assuming she had socks. Ezra had no way to know. The cultural briefings had been maddeningly vague about fashion customs. He replayed the visit in his head for the 100th time, the way she'd entered without a word. Saturday stared, left, like some kind of interstellar cat. He wondered if this was a test. Maybe the palace had ultra-advanced behavioral monitors hidden in the walls, recording every twitch of his eyebrows to determine if he was worth vaporizing or merely demoting to asteroid duty. Halfway through a third cup of bitter, possibly sentient palace-issued coffee, the chime sounded again. Same soft tone, same impossible implication. Ezra stood so fast he spilled coffee across the console. The door opened. There she was. This time she was holding something. A sphere, smooth and matte black, about the size of a grapefruit. She walked in, looked at the spill, then at him. "I swear it was self-defense," Ezra said, wiping at the mess with a sleeve. "The coffee attacked first." She set the sphere down on the console and sat. again without a word. Ezra eyed the object. Is that going to explode? She tilted her head. I mean, no offense, but last time someone handed me a mysterious orb, it turned out to be a mobile compost reactor. My fingernails still smell like synthetic moss. The queen touched the orb and it flickered to life. A low hum filled the room as a holographic image sprang into the air. A rotating star chart, with several systems highlighted in a soft blue. He blinked. Is that the Veil sector? She nodded. That's restricted space, he said slowly. Even our military isn't allowed near it. Classified as a temporal anomaly zone. Ships go in and either don't come out or come back 5 minutes before they left. Yuri tapped another spot. A new projection appeared. Two figures sitting side by side, one distinctly humanoid, the other with long, delicate ears and luminous eyes. They were laughing. The queen looked at Ezra, then at the image. You're showing me? He asked. A story? She nodded again. His mind raced. You're saying this happened? Someone, like us, crossed into the veil and came out okay? She paused. Then in a voice so soft it barely registered said, No, not yet. Ezra's brain stalled. He looked between the orb, the image, and the queen. Wait, hold on. Are you saying you want to go there? With me? Into the most dangerously unstable part of known space? She smiled. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like the laws of physics had just become optional. Oh no, he said. You're serious. Yuri leaned back slightly, the gesture regal and casual all at once. Like this was just a regular Tuesday for her. Pop in on a forbidden human, propose a jaunt into the temporal Bermuda Triangle. Ezra pinched the bridge of his nose. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but do I get to pack snacks? She blinked. He gestured. I mean, if we're going on an epic, reality-warping space journey, I feel like trail mix should be involved. Or at least something with chocolate. That's just basic survival. She looked at the orb again. He sighed. I have so many questions. Like, why me? Why any of this? And also, is your palace security just really bad? Or are you secretly hacking the system? Yuri stood. She walked to the door, then turned. You are not boring, she said. The door slid open. Ezra stared after her. Okay, well, now I definitely can't sleep. He looked at the orb, still humming softly. Not boring, he repeated, then grinned. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me in a room that might be under intergalactic surveillance. He glanced around, leaned toward the orb, and whispered, Tell no one I giggled. The orb pulsed once. Ezra shut off the console and flopped onto his cot. Tomorrow was probably going to be even weirder. And for the first time in his life, he couldn't wait. Ezra spent the entire next day oscillating between rehearsed casualness and outright panic. His official duty as low-tier observer meant he spent most of his time in front of screens, tracking palace activities, diplomatic traffic, and, on rare occasions, glossy infographics about space dust particle trajectories, which granted sounded dull until you realized that space dust sometimes spontaneously exploded. So basically, he was a glorified cosmic babysitter. By mid-afternoon, the palace corridors felt like a labyrinth designed by a bored AI with a sense of humor. Hallways folded over each other. Doorways shimmered and shifted, occasionally dumping Ezra into the wrong wing, where he had to awkwardly explain to an ancient alien librarian why he'd interrupted her mid-meditation. She simply fixed him with a look that implied he was less a visitor and more an intergalactic knock-knock joke. The only thing constant was the unyielding rule: no talking to the queen. Or more accurately, no talking about the queen, no thinking about the queen, and definitely no attempting any sort of communication that could be interpreted as friendly. Ezra had managed to abide by that rule for the past 6 days. Then came last night when Queen Ayuri casually dropped by with a mysterious orb, an invitation to a cosmic adventure, and an expression that suggested this was as normal as his morning coffee. Although, admittedly, her coffee probably didn't taste like recycled starship fuel. He glanced at the orb resting on his console, the black surface gleaming softly. It hummed faintly, almost like it had a personality. And given the palace's penchant for bioengineered furniture, he wouldn't have been surprised. The palace AI, known officially as Mandate, piped in through the speakers. Observer Vale, an unregistered royal protocol breach has been logged. Ezra chuckled. Understatement of the year, Mandate. Did you see last night? Mandate responded with an ironically dry tone. Yes, and your heart rate exceeded safe parameters by 23%. Hey, I'm only human. Literally. The orb pulsed. Ezra swallowed. Right. So, what now? At precisely that moment, his door slid open, and there she was again. Yuri stepped inside without the usual courtly entourage or any hint of alarm. This time she carried a sleek device that looked like a cross between a data pad and a musical instrument. Her ears flicked slightly as she approached. You are persistent, Ezra said, attempting to sound amused, though his voice wavered like a rookie diplomat at a xenocultural exchange. She placed the device on the console and activated it. A 3D map of space appeared, stars twinkling with vibrant colors, paths marked in neon blue weaving between them like cosmic highways. Ezra's eyes narrowed. Is this a navigation plot? Eri nodded. A course through the Veil sector. You understood correctly last night. The anomaly is not just a danger, it is an opportunity. Ezra rubbed his temple. Okay, so you're saying we're going to fly a ship into a space-time glitch that has a tendency to swallow entire fleets like they're snacks? Exactly, she replied, her voice calm as if discussing the weather. He blinked. Did you know I'm contractually obligated to refuse missions that could end in disintegration? Her smile deepened. Rules are flexible when the stakes are survival. Ezra exhaled slowly. I suppose that's one way to put it. The Queen turned to him, her long ears twitching with an almost imperceptible rhythm. You will command the vessel. Ezra's jaw dropped. Me? Command? Last week I was told to keep my mouth shut and my uniform tidy. Now you want me to pilot a spaceship through a temporal wormhole? Yuri's gaze held steady. You are more capable than you realize. Ezra blinked. Thanks for the vote of confidence, but I'm still figuring out how to use the bathroom here without triggering a security alert. A faint hum filled the room as the orb on the console projected a miniature model of the ship they would use, a sleek craft called the Celestial Whisper. Its design was unlike anything Ezra had seen. No visible engines, no exhaust, just smooth flowing lines that shimmered with a liquid metal sheen. That's one fancy spaceship, Ezra admitted. Is it equipped with snacks? Asking for morale. Yuri's lips twitched in the hint of a smile. The ship adapts to its passengers' needs. Ezra raised an eyebrow. So if I'm craving chocolate, it'll just create some? She nodded. And keep you alive through impossible circumstances. Ezra laughed nervously. Great. I hope it can whip up coffee that doesn't taste like recycled starship fuel. Yuri's ears flicked again, and she gestured toward the map. We depart at dusk. Ezra stared at the map, his mind spinning with possibilities and the absurdity of it all. You know, he said, if this ends with us trapped in a time loop where I have to relive my awkward small talk with you over and over, I'm going to need a vacation. She didn't respond, but the way her eyes crinkled suggested she appreciated the joke. Ezra sighed, then squared his shoulders. All right, let's see what the Veil sector has in store for us. The Queen's smile deepened, and as the door slid shut behind her, Ezra felt an odd mixture of fear and exhilaration. He might have been a low-ranking observer with a habit of awkwardness, but now he was about to become the captain of an unprecedented voyage into the very heart of spacetime's mysteries. He grabbed the orb, the faint hum vibrating through his fingertips. Guess it's showtime, he muttered. And with that, the quiet palace of Kurthwin began to feel a little less like a prison, and a lot more like the launching pad for something extraordinary. Ezra stood at the threshold of the launch bay, the sleek hull of the Celestial Whisper gleaming under the soft glow of the twin moons. The ship seemed almost alive, its liquid metal surface rippling faintly as if breathing in anticipation. He rubbed his palms together, trying to summon the confidence of a man who could pilot a spacecraft through a temporal anomaly instead of the usual human skill set of ordering takeout and awkwardly avoiding small talk. Yuri approached, her long ears flicking in a rhythm Ezra had learned to recognize as her version of a thoughtful sigh. You look as if you've seen a ghost, she said, voice smooth like liquid starlight. Or worse, Ezra replied, I'm about to fly into a part of space where physics decided to take a coffee break, and I'm supposed to be the captain. She offered a slight smile. We will navigate it together. Ezra raised an eyebrow. Is that the official Queen pep talk? Because I was expecting a throne speech. Her eyes sparkled with amusement. Consider this a prelude. As they boarded, Ezra couldn't help but notice how the interior adapted instantly. Walls shifting hues to a calming blue, seats molding perfectly to their forms, consoles humming softly under their fingertips. The ship's AI, which introduced itself as Lux, greeted them in a voice both soothing and just a hint cheeky. Welcome aboard the Celestial Whisper. Please fasten your reality belts. We're about to bend space-time, and possibly a few rules. Ezra chuckled. Good to know the ship has a sense of humor. I'm going to need it. Yuri settled beside him, her long ears twitching as she tapped the commands into the console with graceful precision. Your fear is understandable. Ezra looked at her. Fear? I'm not scared. I'm just creatively nervous. Lux's voice interjected. Warning. Creative nervousness may cause involuntary trembling and spontaneous bad jokes. Proceed with caution. Ezra groaned. See? Even the ship is judging me. As the Whisper lifted from the launch bay, the palace's immense silhouette shrinking behind them, Ezra felt the familiar thrill of leaving known space, mixed with a creeping dread that he might accidentally warp them into a dimension where Monday lasted forever. Yuri's gaze was steady, her calm presence a stark contrast to his own jittery energy. The Veil sector is not merely a danger zone. It is a crucible. A crucible? Ezra echoed. Yes, she said. A place where time fractures and reveals possibilities, where past and future converge, and choices ripple across existence. Ezra frowned. Sounds like my last relationship. Yuri's laughter was quiet, a rare sound that felt like a secret shared. You find humor even in the void. Humor is a survival mechanism, Ezra said. That and caffeine. The Whisper accelerated, stars stretching into luminous lines as they pierced the boundary of normal space. The ship's systems hummed in harmony, adjusting to the strange physics of the Veil. The stars flickered, their light bending and twisting, as if reality itself was caught in a kaleidoscope. Suddenly the ship shuddered. Lux's voice was calm but firm. Temporal fluctuations detected. Engaging stabilizers. Ezra gripped the console. Are we going to explode or just get really, really lost? Yuri's eyes gleamed. Neither. We will pass through. A sudden flash blinded them, and when their vision cleared, the stars outside had rearranged themselves into unfamiliar constellations. Ezra exhaled sharply. Well, that was unexpected. Yuri nodded. The Veil reshapes space and time. Every journey here is unique. They ventured deeper, the ship's sensors picking up echoes, whispers of moments yet to come, and shadows of what had been. The atmosphere inside the Whisper grew heavy with possibility. Ezra glanced at Yuri. So what's the plan? Do we just sail through until we find a way out? Or do we look for something specific? The Veil calls to those who listen, she said softly. We follow the resonance. Trust in the unknown. Ezra smirked. Trust in the unknown. Easy to say when you have ears that can literally tune into cosmic frequencies. Yuri smiled. You have your own talents. He raised an eyebrow. Please tell me talents does not include accidental button pusher extraordinaire. Before she could respond, the console beeped urgently. A swirling vortex of shimmering light appeared on the main display. Lux intoned, anomaly detected. Probability of temporal convergence, 87%. Ezra swallowed. That sounds both terrifying and like a really bad deal. Yuri stood, her presence commanding despite the confined space. Prepare to enter the heart of the Veil. Ezra's fingers danced over the controls, heart pounding. Ready as I'll ever be. As the Celestial Whisper surged forward, the ship and its passengers braced for whatever mysteries awaited, where time bent, reality folded, and a forbidden connection between human and queen would be tested like never before. Ezra stole a glance at Uri. If we survive this, I'm definitely asking for hazard pay. She met his gaze, her ears flicking once more. Agreed. But for now, let us face the unknown together. And with that, they plunged deeper into the cosmic riddle, the veil sector wrapping around them like a living, breathing enigma, full of danger, discovery, and the strange, unspoken bond growing between two very different souls on the edge of forever. The celestial whisper floated in the quiet aftermath of the veil's embrace. Stars realigned. The cosmic tapestry once again folded into familiar patterns. Ezra sat in the pilot's chair, fingers twitching as if still adjusting to the strange currents of time they just traversed. Eerie stood beside him, her long ears lowered in a gesture Ezra had come to recognize as thoughtful, perhaps even hopeful. "So," Ezra began, voice a little hoarse, "we made it out without becoming temporal dust bunnies. That's a win, right?" Erie's lips curled into a small smile. "A win, yes, but also a beginning." He chuckled, the sound rusty after the tension they'd faced. "You know, when you said the veil was a crucible, I thought you meant metaphorically. Turns out it's also a really intense cosmic spa day." She laughed softly. "A cosmic spa that tests the soul." Ezra rubbed his temples. "My soul feels like it's been through a washing machine on the spin cycle." Erie looked at him, eyes clear and steady. "You have changed, Ezra, not just in skill, but in understanding. You see the veil's paradoxes not as threats, but as opportunities." He glanced out the viewport, watching stars pulse with renewed energy. "I think I get it now. The veil doesn't just warp space-time, it warps perspective, makes you question what's real, what's possible, and what is forbidden," Yuri added quietly. Ezra nodded slowly. "Speaking of forbidden," he turned toward her, an awkward smile tugging at his lips. "You breaking royal protocol by visiting me every night wasn't exactly in the handbook, was it?" Yuri's ears twitched, a trace of embarrassment. "Number, but sometimes the rules are made to be reconsidered." He grinned. "I'll drink to that. Actually, do you have anything stronger than that recycled coffee?" She raised an eyebrow, the faintest twinkle of mischief in her eyes. "Perhaps." Their shared laughter filled the cabin, a bridge over the vast gulf of their differences. Ezra leaned back. "So what now?" "The palace will want answers. The council will want reports." Erie's gaze darkened. "They will, but I have seen what is possible when we break the cycle of silence." "Are you saying this changes everything?" "Yes. The silence between us is no longer a barrier. It is a beginning." Ezra smiled, feeling something shift within, a flicker of hope and purpose he hadn't known was missing. "You know, I never thought being the forbidden conversationalist would lead to an interstellar adventure." Yuri's eyes shone. "Nor did I." The ship's AI chimed gently. "Course plotted back to Carthwin. Estimated arrival, 6 hours." Ezra stretched, suddenly aware of how tired he was. 6 hours to contemplate all the paperwork we're about to cause. Yuri's laugh was soft but genuine. "Let them come. We will face them together." He met her gaze, the silent understanding between them more powerful than any decree. "Together," he agreed. As the celestial whisper began its journey home, Ezra felt the weight of his past constraints lift. He was no longer just a low-ranking observer bound by protocol. He was a traveler of time's edge, a catalyst for change, and, improbably, a confidant to a queen who defied all expectations. And as the stars outside whispered ancient secrets, Ezra realized that sometimes the greatest journeys were the ones that led inward, to connection, courage, and the courage to speak when silence was the law. "Ready to face the palace?" Eri asked. Ezra smiled, feeling the unfamiliar strength in his chest. "More ready than ever, but let's maybe keep the forbidden visits a little more official next time?" She chuckled, ears flicking playfully. "Agreed." And so they returned, not just as observer and queen, but as two souls forever changed by the veil, bound by stories shared in the quiet between stars, and by a truth that needed no words to be understood. The end of their journey was just the beginning of everything. The announcement came over the colony-wide broadcast like a hiccup in a funeral. "Minor seismic instability detected in Sector 14. Please remain calm." Then 2 seconds later, the power flickered, the walls groaned, and every cup of recycled coffee in the outpost trembled in silent dread. Dax Mercer was halfway through insulting a particularly stubborn fuse panel when the tremor hit. He braced instinctively against the bulkhead, his prosthetic leg humming as its balance gyros kicked in. "Oh good," he muttered. "Just what I needed. Monday with extra tectonic flair." Down the corridor, a food cart toppled over, launching synth noodles and steaming clumps of something brown trademark across the floor. The technician who'd been asleep beside it screamed and flailed like he'd just been jolted from a nightmare about tax audits. Dax didn't even look up. The panel sparked once, spat a tiny cloud of soot, and gave up the ghost with the mechanical equivalent of a sigh. "I swear this colony is held together with optimism and tape," Dax muttered, yanking the now charred fuse from its housing. "Mostly tape." The tremor passed, leaving behind the usual aftermath. Blinking lights, cursing engineers, and the sharp, distant hiss of yet another oxygen regulator springing a leak. Dax pulled a multimeter from his tool belt, shook it like an uncooperative ketchup bottle, and made a mental note to not mention this latest failure in his maintenance logs. Again, bureaucracy hated honesty. Then the alarm sounded, not the minor warning buzz that signaled someone had burned a toaster, the real alarm. The kind with pulsing red strobes and a female AI voice that tried to sound calm, but had the unmistakable undertone of, "You're all probably going to die, but I legally have to say this nicely. Seismic collapse detected in Sector 14. Casualties probable. Rescue protocols engaged. Please await further instruction." A second passed. Then the message repeated itself in 4 languages and 2 dialects of angry bureaucrat. Dax blinked, muttered, "Oh, for the love of duct tape," and stood. His comm crackled. "Mercer, report in. You're closest to 14's outer shell. Any visual?" He keyed his mic. "Just a whole lot of broken dreams and a noodle explosion, Chief. Want me to peek my head in before the rest of the building joins it?" "Negative. Protocol says..." Yeah, protocols. I'll take a peek." Before the chief could protest, Dax slung his pack over one shoulder and limped toward the emergency access corridor. The prosthetic leg whirred slightly with every step, its servos clicking in protest like an old man getting out of bed. He passed a group of security officers debating whether they were technically required to intervene. "Wait, you guys are armed and I'm the one heading in?" Dax called out. One of them looked up, shrugged. "You're expendable. We're under review." "Fair enough," Dax muttered, stepping into the dim hallway. Halfway through the corridor, he heard her. Not a scream. Zelenari vocal cords weren't built for human-style shrieking, but a sharp, vibrating trill that made the air taste like cold iron. It rattled the back of his teeth, like someone had thrown a tuning fork into his skull. He turned a corner and saw her, tall, eyes like mercury swirling in zero-G, and ears long enough to make elf jokes inevitable. Her uniform, if you could call it that, was caked in dust and streaked with something darker. She stood rigid, face pale, arms twitching as she gestured furiously at a cracked access hatch. "My child," she said in standard, voice quivering but fluent. "Kayla, trapped. No one comes. No one listens. Please." Behind her, a human engineer walked briskly in the opposite direction. "Hey," Dax shouted. "You see her?" "Yeah, and I see death by cave-in too. Not my department." The woman turned back to Dax, desperation written in the lines of her face, in the flutter of her gill-thin throat ridges. "The tunnel fell. She is alive. I heard her. She called, but I cannot reach her. I do not know how to..." Dax looked at the hatch. A collapsed maintenance corridor, twisted at an angle, partially blocked by debris. The scanner beside it blinked a feeble red. Unsafe. Unstable. Unwise. "Well," he said, dropping to one knee and yanking out his plasma cutter. "Lucky for you, I have a deeply unhealthy relationship with personal safety." The alien woman blinked. "You will help?" "I figure someone should, before HR drafts another 'we value diversity' memo while a kid dies." He cut through the first panel. Sparks danced. The air hissed with ozone and guilt. The woman watched him with something between awe and suspicion. "I'm Dax," he said over the whine of the cutter. "Cyrene," she replied, then hesitated. "You do not fear me?" "Lady, I've eaten cafeteria chili that was scarier than you." The panel popped free. Dax shoved it aside with his shoulder and peered into the dark. "Kayla, he called. "Little long ears, you in there?" There was a beat of silence, then a weak, high-pitched whimper. Serene nearly collapsed. Dax steadied her with a hand on her arm. "She's alive," she whispered. "Yep. And now we just have to get through several meters of unstable infrastructure, faulty wiring, possible gas leaks, and our colony's stunning lack of moral fiber." Cyrene stared at him. "Is this humor? You'll get used to it. Come on, we've got a child to annoy back into safety." He led the way into the broken tunnel, his helmet light flickering. The air smelled of scorched plastic and fear. Serene followed, steps precise but trembling. Behind them, the hatch sealed with a reluctant hiss. Inside the dark, the colony fell away. Politics, fear, protocols, none of it mattered. Just the fading signal of a frightened child, the echo of crumbling steel, and a human who wasn't smart enough to turn away. And a mother who'd already lost too much to stop now. The tunnel groaned above them like a disgruntled beast nursing a hangover. Every few minutes, dust filtered down from cracks overhead, giving Dax the charming illusion that the ceiling was quietly disintegrating in its free time. He adjusted the angle on his helmet lamp and muttered, "You ever get that feeling you walked into the part of the movie where people start dying alphabetically?" Serene didn't answer. She moved with practiced grace over jagged debris, her long ears twitching at every creak. She paused frequently, listening, touching the tunnel walls, eyes narrowed as if trying to taste the vibration in the air. Dax had to admire it, not that he'd ever admit admiration out loud. It might ruin his carefully maintained image as the colony's most disinterested maintenance technician. They reached a collapsed section where steel girders had bent like wet spaghetti. Dax poked at one with a telescopic wrench. It groaned in reply. "Okay," he said. "Options. 1. We crawl under that thing and hope it doesn't decide to become a steel pancake. 2. I blow it up. 3. We turn around and go home, pretend this never happened, and open a sandwich shop." Cyrene stared at the mess. "You brought explosives?" "Of course I brought explosives. I'm not a savage." He rummaged in his pack and pulled out 2 small charges labeled Micro-Pulse Thermogel. "Do not sniff." "You carry that casually?" she asked. "You carry ears longer than your forearm. Let's not judge." He applied the charges, wired them to a detonator no larger than a communion wafer, and set the delay to 8 seconds. "Cover your ears, or fold them up or something." The blast was elegant, if explosions could be called that. The girder split in a hiss of energy, curling back just enough to allow passage. The heat set off every nearby proximity sensor, triggering a short-lived chorus of security alerts that neither of them acknowledged. They ducked through the opening, Dax muttering, "I miss chairs." "I miss chairs and good air and not being electrocuted once a week." "Your job electrocutes you?" Serene asked. "Occupational hazard. So's radiation, falling objects, budget cuts, and that one intern who reprogrammed my coffee dispenser to speak in binary. Try ordering a latte when it just beeps at you." "Is this always your life?" Tuesdays are quieter." Further down, the tunnel narrowed and split at a Y-junction. One path dipped sharply, lit by flickering hazard lamps. The other was pitch dark, quiet, and slightly warmer than it should have been. Dax studied his scanner. Static. The beacon signal from Kayla's wristcom flickered, weak but still traceable, pulsing somewhere beyond the darkened route. "She went left," Cyrene said before he could announce it. "I remember this stretch. The venting system down there sometimes made her laugh." "Sure, great. Nothing makes a place more welcoming than creepy vent noises." He checked the charge on his cutting torch. Half depleted. "All right, creepy tunnel it is." They advanced in silence, broken only by Dax's occasional muttering when he stubbed his toe on unseen debris. The darkness wasn't just visual, it was thick, heavy, like the tunnel was swallowing light out of spite. The warmth intensified, not enough to sweat, but enough to be noticed. The kind of warmth that suggested something mechanical was leaking very close to somewhere important. Dax knelt beside a vent pipe and tapped it. "Feel that? That's pressurized geothermal flow. If this baby bursts, we're all getting skin steamed like fancy vegetables." Then we hurry, Cyrene said. Or walk calmly and carefully, and definitely don't think about sudden geysers of death. Around the next bend, they found the first body. Human, mining gear, helmet cracked. Dax stopped, sighed, and gently turned off the helmet lamp. Didn't even get out of the seat. Cyrene looked away. Why do your people not retrieve their dead? We try, sometimes, depends on the paperwork. That is a terrible system. You'll notice it's a running theme. They passed two more bodies. One Zelenari, the other a drone operator. The alien's long limbs were twisted at awkward angles, and Cyrene's face flickered at the sight. She didn't speak, but her pace slowed. Dax said nothing, just kept moving. Then they heard it. A faint, broken chirp, not speech, a soft, rhythmic beep. Dax whipped out his scanner, which immediately started doing its best impression of a panicked squirrel. That's her beacon. Signal's garbage, but it's close. Down this service hatch. The hatch in question was bent almost in half, one edge welded to the floor by a heat flash. Dax examined it with a grunt. Gonna have to cut it. Do you have enough fuel? I've got enough reckless optimism to try anyway. It took 3 minutes, one burned glove, and a singed eyebrow to finish the job. The hatch fell away, revealing a crawl space lit only by flickering conduit sparks. At the far end, maybe 30 meters away, something moved. Cyrene froze. Kayla! The girl's small body was curled between two support beams, partially covered by an emergency thermal blanket. One ear twitched. The other lay limp against her head. Her eyes were open, dull with shock. The moment she saw Cyrene, she blinked slowly and whimpered. Dax turned to Cyrene. Let me go first, just in case the floor decides to eat people today. He edged through the crawl space, every creak of metal a potential death sentence. Halfway through, his prosthetic leg caught on a broken pipe, and he nearly face-planted into a wall. Okay, he said. Note to self, design leg that bends politely. Kayla whimpered again, louder this time. Dax reached her and gently assessed the situation. One foot pinned, likely a sprain, minor lacerations, dehydration, and most urgently, a powerful case of terror. Hey there, he said gently, brushing her dusty hair aside. You look like someone who's been through way too much tunnel today. She stared up at him. You're funny-shaped. I get that a lot. Cyrene crawled up beside them, eyes wet with emotion despite her species' lack of tear ducts. She gathered Kayla into her arms, humming low and soft in her own language. The girl clung to her silently, one long ear drooping over Cyrene's shoulder. Dax leaned against a wall and exhaled. All right, we found the kid. Now we just have to get out of the haunted meat grinder without dying. Easy. Thank you, Cyrene said, her voice barely audible. Don't thank me yet. We're not safe. This place is one sneeze away from a structural tantrum. As if summoned by fate's twisted sense of humor, a deep tremor rippled through the tunnel. Dust fell. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, something very large groaned and shifted. Dax sighed. Okay, I think it heard me. He looked at Cyrene. She looked at him. Then, without needing to say it aloud, they both turned toward the tunnel exit and ran. Somewhere behind them, the tunnel made a sound that Dax could only describe as enthusiastically collapsing. Steel screamed, rock shifted, an angry gust of wind whooshed past, smelling faintly of burnt plastic and someone's very bad day. Good news, he shouted over his shoulder. We're officially being chased by geology. Cyrene clutched Kayla close, her limbs moving with desperate precision, balancing her child while dodging beams and debris, like a ballet dancer in a demolition derby. Kayla was silent now, but her small fingers had a death grip on her mother's collar, and her one good ear twitched in alarm every time something groaned or cracked. Dax activated the heads-up nav overlay in his helmet, praying the map wasn't as outdated as the snack dispenser back in the common area. Blinking blue lines guided him toward the surface via maintenance subroute 7, also known, unofficially, as the hallway of regrettable engineering decisions. He gestured ahead. Okay, new plan. We go up through the backup filtration shaft. It's technically off-limits, probably full of soot, and possibly haunted, but it's the only route left. Cyrene didn't ask questions. She just nodded and followed. They reached the filtration chamber a few minutes later, coughing from dust and heat. The entrance was half blocked by a malfunctioning turbine fan, still spinning lazily like a hungover ceiling fixture. Dax studied it for a moment. All right, we can time this. I've seen worse. When? Wednesday last week, involving a rogue sanitation drone and one very unlucky sandwich. Cyrene raised an eyebrow as Dax crouched, counted the rotations, then darted through the gap with a whoosh of air and a startled yelp. See? Easy. Like threading a needle with a wrench. He extended a hand. Cyrene passed Kayla through first, gently but swiftly. Dax caught the child, holding her like an unexploded device. Cyrene followed seconds later, slipping through the fan gap with unnerving agility. Kayla muttered something in Zelenari. Dax glanced at Cyrene. What did she say? She says your face smells like electric socks. Flattering. They climbed the shaft, which was steep, narrow, and full of suspicious drips. Dax's legs started to whir angrily, its power gauge blinking. He slapped it. Not now, Jerry. Don't you dare quit on me. Your leg has a name? Jerry. We have a love-hate relationship. Mostly hate, occasionally begrudging respect during power outages. After several harrowing minutes of climbing through spaces that clearly weren't designed for humanoid passage, they reached a small maintenance room just below the colony's upper deck. Dax pried open the access hatch, shoved a bucket of mop bots out of the way, and pulled them into what could only be described as the janitor's crawl space of last resort. They emerged into relative calm. The upper deck's lighting was stable, the floors clean, the silence unnerving. We made it, Dax breathed, helping Cyrene to her feet. We actually made it. I was sure I'd die being crushed by ductwork, or sarcasm. Kayla coughed. It was a dry, pitiful sound, but she clung to her mother with a strength that said she'd fight off another cave-in just for a juice box. Cyrene leaned against the wall, her face strained but composed. Thank you, she said again, quieter this time. Don't thank me until I figure out how to explain this to the chief without getting demoted to algae filter scrubber. A chime interrupted them. Dax's comm buzzed. He tapped it. Mercer here, alive, against the odds. Mercer, said a voice drenched in disbelief and static. What the hell did you do? Sector 14's grid is offline. We lost signal for 20 minutes. There's a growing concern you staged a dramatic disappearance to avoid filing Form 33C. I saved a kid. There was a pause. Of course you did. Is it one of ours? Zelenari. Another pause, longer, colder. Protocol doesn't cover non-human retrievals. There will be questions. Yeah, Dax said. Good, I have a few of my own. Like why no one else helped. We'll debrief when you return. Try not to touch anything expensive. The line cut. Dax sighed. Bureaucracy. Faster at disappointment than rescue. Cyrene glanced down the corridor. We are not welcome. Technically, no one is. The only people happy here are the vending machines, and even they're passive-aggressive. They moved through the maintenance corridor toward the medbay. As they walked, Kayla's grip loosened, her eyes drooping with exhaustion. Dax reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled energy bar. Here. Not exactly gourmet, but it's vaguely edible. Kayla eyed it with suspicion. She wants to know what's in it, Cyrene translated. Uncertainty, regret. Maybe peanuts. The girl took it, sniffed, then nibbled like a cautious mouse. In the medbay, an automated drone scanned them briefly before wheeling off to file its report to someone who probably wouldn't read it. A human nurse gave Dax a dirty look and muttered something about contamination protocols before retreating into an office. No one approached Cyrene or her daughter. Dax stood awkwardly. Right. I guess this is where I get scolded by middle management. Cyrene stepped forward. You did not hesitate. Habit, poor impulse control. That, and I like being where I'm not supposed to be. You risked your life for my child. I'd do it again. Silence stretched between them. Kayla leaned against her mother, watching Dax with one bright eye and half a granola bar sticking out of her mouth. Cyrene's expression shifted. If you had not come, don't think about that. Think about tomorrow, and maybe finding a colony where HR doesn't hand out ethics guidelines like holiday flyers. Will you be punished? Probably. They hate when I make them look bad. Kayla said something softly. Serene smiled, then turned to Dax. She says you are funny and brave, but mostly funny. I'll take it. They stood there silent among the hissing consoles and blinking screens, 3 lives bound now by noise, dust, risk, and one small, unshakable act of defiance. Dax smiled faintly, rubbed the back of his neck, and looked around the med bay like it might vanish if he stared too long. Well, he said, what's next? You're late, said Chief Rendell, not looking up from his data slate. His voice had all the warmth of a deep space vacuum and roughly half the hospitality. Dax scratched at the smudge on his cheek that might have been engine grease or just the colony's latest mystery stain. Yeah, well, my hoverboard broke, the dog ate my report, and I spent the morning dodging falling rocks to save a child. So you know, busy. Rendell's eye twitched. He tapped something on his screen and projected a hologram of the tunnel collapse. It looked worse in replay. The part where the ceiling folded in like a cheap camping chair was especially cinematic. You violated 6 regulations, Rendell said. 7, if I count the unauthorized detonation. 8, if I count the part where you dragged a non-human through secured areas. She's not cargo, Dax said. She's a mother. Her kid was trapped. I didn't exactly stop to fill out a waiver. Rendell folded his hands. Do you realize how this looks? Heroic? Noble? Great promo material for Interspecies Unity Day? Like insubordination, like recklessness, like a human making a spectacle over an alien. She was the only one asking for help. That doesn't make her our responsibility. Dax leaned forward, balancing between irritation and a full-blown lecture. Funny, I thought responsibility wasn't species-specific. Rendell gave him the look reserved for power drainers, smug interns, and malfunctioning food printers. You're not a diplomat, Mercer. You're barely a maintenance technician. I'm good at improvising. That counts. You're suspended. Dax blinked. You're suspending me for saving a child? You're suspended, Rendell said slowly, for ignoring protocol, violating containment laws, endangering structural integrity, and insulting a vending unit during your exit. It threatened me first. You are dismissed. Dax stood. You know, I always thought the food printer tasted like cardboard out of principle, but now I think it's just trying to match your flavor. He left the office, resisted the urge to kick the door, and made it halfway to the elevators before the hallway lights dimmed and the colony-wide announcement tone buzzed overhead like an annoyed mosquito. Attention, said the AI's chipper voice. This is a level 2 alert. Atmospheric pressure in Sector 9 has destabilized. Please avoid sudden exhalation. Thank you, and may your limbs remain attached. Dax sighed. Great. First I lose my job. Now the air's quitting too. A small bot whirred up beside him, scanned his badge, and handed him a bright yellow card with "Suspended, do not engage with valuable equipment," printed in unforgiving font. He stuck it in his pocket and kept walking. At the lower med bay, Serene sat beside Kayla's bed. The girl was asleep, a pulse monitor flickering lazily beside her. Serene's ears twitched when Dax entered. I've been promoted to the unemployed, he said. Very exciting. No salary, no cafeteria access, and I think my room just got reassigned to a mop storage closet. I'm sorry, Serene said. Don't be. I never liked that closet of a room. It smelled like feet and ambition. You were punished for helping. Technically, I was punished for helping while being myself. Apparently, heroism is fine as long as it wears the right badge. Serene gestured to a small bag beside her. They said we must leave soon. The council will not allow us to stay long-term. Dax sank into the chair next to her. Of course not. Can't have aliens cluttering up the corridors. Someone might trip and fall into empathy. They offer transport to the outer colony. The one with the oxygen generators that hiccup every Tuesday? Serene nodded. We will go. I will find work. There are mining jobs. They make humans sign a waiver over there. I don't want to know what they make you sign. Kayla stirred. Dax leaned forward. Hey, Peanut, how's the head? Full of fuzz, she murmured. Same, but I call it charm. Kayla reached out and tugged his sleeve. You're not allowed to help anymore? Nope, I'm officially a bad influence. The good news is, I'm also excellent at ignoring rules. Can we keep you? Serene blinked. Kayla, Dax grinned. Tempting, very tempting. A knock interrupted them. A young officer peeked in. Mercer, there's someone asking for you. A Zelenari elder. Kind of tall, glowy skin. Scary, calm vibe. Serene straightened. Elder Tyron? Friend of yours? Not exactly. She's authority. Dax stood. Well, I do love awkward conversations. Let's see if I can get exiled from a second species in 1 week. He followed the officer to a quiet corner of the commons, where Elder Tyron stood as though she'd materialized rather than walked in. Her long ears swept back, and her eyes were like twin moons, cold, distant, and possibly judging him for his haircut. You are Dax Mercer, she said, guilty as charged. You retrieved the child from Sector 14. Is that what the kids are calling it now? Retrieved? I like it. She studied him for several long seconds. You did not act for gain. Well, I did hope someone might buy me a drink afterward, but no dice. You risked much. You faced death, and you are now discarded. Yeah, kind of the colonies thing. Help if you must, but keep it quiet and don't expect applause. Tyrion nodded once. You would make a poor diplomat. I've been told. But a worthy ally. He squinted. Wait, was that a compliment? She stepped closer. The council here will not change, but the colonies beyond are watching, listening. There is a need for humans who act unexpectedly. Are you recruiting me into some kind of alien spy network? Because that would really brighten my week. Not spies, bridges. Bridges don't usually come with explosives and bad puns. You do, he smirked. So what now? Now, she said, you choose. Stay and be forgotten, or come and be more. He didn't answer right away. His brain, trained for sarcasm and duct tape solutions, struggled with the idea of being wanted for something other than last-minute repairs. Finally, he said, Can I bring Kayla a snack first? You may. He turned. Then yeah, let's build some bridges. Maybe blow a few up along the way, for fun. Tyrion smiled, just barely. And Dax, recently suspended, freshly scolded, entirely unsure what came next, smiled right back. Dax stared at the view from the alien transport's observation window, watching the stars crawl past like curious insects. The vessel was sleek, fast, and distressingly clean. He'd never trusted anything that didn't rattle at least once during acceleration. Kayla sat cross-legged beside him, humming tunelessly and trying to feed bits of dehydrated fruit to a maintenance drone that clearly didn't have a digestive system. The drone beeped in protest but didn't leave, which made Dax wonder if it was just lonely. You know, he said, leaning closer, most droids would have filed a harassment complaint by now. Kayla shrugged. Maybe this one likes snacks. Maybe it's scared of you. That means I win. Serene walked in, her long ears brushing the frame of the doorway, her expression somewhere between exhausted and amused. We are approaching the outer ring colonies. Tyrion says you'll be brief soon. I'm still not sure why they want me. I'm not exactly ambassador material. My idea of diplomacy is not throwing a wrench at the other guy. You are unpredictable. That is useful. You say that like it's a good thing. For Zelenari, unpredictability is a rare advantage. Our enemies assume order. They do not expect chaos. I can do chaos. That's basically my resume. Serene smiled. Kayla giggled. The maintenance drone beeped and tried to reverse itself under a chair, possibly out of embarrassment. A chime echoed through the corridor. The lights dimmed slightly and a smooth voice announced in several languages, "Arrival in 5 minutes. Prepare for surface drop." Dax stood, stretched, and immediately regretted it. Okay, but just once, I'd like to be briefed in a nice, stable gravity environment, maybe with snacks and coffee. Coffee causes hallucinations in my species. Honestly, that sounds like a selling point. They followed a glowing blue path to the debrief chamber. It was more a lounge than a room. Pillowed seats, floating panels, and a wall that morphed into a 3D star map when you touched it. Dax touched it twice just to mess with the settings. When it began loudly narrating galactic migration patterns, he blamed the drone. Tyrion entered without fanfare. She carried a thin data tablet in the same unreadable expression she always wore, the one that said either, "I deeply respect your courage," or "I'm considering vaporizing your shoes." "You will be assigned to Colony Virex 3, she said. "It is a mixed-species facility at the border of neutral space. You'll assist with logistics, engineering, and cross-cultural negotiations." Dax blinked. "So, duct tape, debates, and disaster recovery. I can live with that. You'll also serve as liaison to the Zelenari refugees there. Your role is symbolic, but your actions will carry weight." "I'm not exactly good at symbolism. You are a human who helped when others turned away. That speaks louder than words." "I don't know, I've got some pretty loud words," Kella piped up. "He yelled at a vending machine once." "Twice," Serene corrected. "It was out of spicy noodles." "I was provoked," Dax said. "Justice had to be served." Tyrion did not smile, but the corners of her eyes crinkled. "You will do well." The drop to Virex 3 was less dramatic than expected. The shuttle kissed the landing pad like it was afraid to wake it. No alarms, no explosions. Dax wasn't sure how to feel about a peaceful arrival. He kept looking around for someone to shout at him. The colony was unlike the rigid corridors of his old post. Open-air domes, hybrid technology, shared gardens. Species worked side by side, translating signs into multiple languages, laughing over strange jokes, debating the flavor profiles of protein bricks. Dax took it in slowly. "Okay, I admit it. This place doesn't totally suck." "You helped make it possible," Serene said. "I just pulled a kid out of a hole." "You pulled us all out," she said. He glanced at Kayla, who was already chasing a hoverpuck with two insectoid kids and what might have been a sentient mop. "I didn't think this is where I'd end up." "You didn't think," she said. "You acted. That is why we're still here." His first weeks were chaos in the best and worst ways. He fixed broken systems, negotiated food distribution disputes, mediated a very confusing argument between a crystalline life form and a sentient vine, and accidentally got elected to a community board because he didn't duck fast enough. He wrote reports now. Actual reports. Sometimes with punctuation. He stopped wearing his suspended tag and started being called Facilitator Mercer, which sounded both impressive and vaguely like a guy who delivers bad news in a pleasant voice. And yet, what changed most wasn't the colony. It was him. He listened more, thought more, judged less. He found himself asking questions like, "How does this affect them?" instead of, "How fast can I fix this and get lunch?" He laughed more too. Kayla made sure of that. She'd appointed herself his cultural advisor and prank strategist. Her latest plot involved slipping a spicy paste into the diplomat's protein cubes. When caught, she'd claimed it was diplomatic seasoning. Cyrene was rarely far. They worked in sync now, understanding each other's silences. She trusted him with her daughter. He trusted her with everything else. One night, on the roof of their shared dome, under a fractured sky of two moons and a flickering satellite, he turned to her. "Do you ever miss the way things were?" "No," she said. "I miss the way they should have been." "Do you think we're getting there?" She looked at him for a long moment. "With you?" "Yes." He leaned back, hands behind his head. "You know, I used to think I was just a maintenance guy, some nobody with a wrench and a sarcastic streak." "You are that," she said. "Thanks. But you are also someone who reached out when no one else would." "Someone had to." "No," she said. "No one had to. But you did." Kayla's laugh echoed from below. Somewhere a drone beeped in protest. He smiled. Maybe he hadn't saved the universe, but he had changed a life, and that, he decided, was enough.